Hey everybody, welcome. This is Two EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff, a webinar that we put out about twice a month, first and third Thursdays, unless something intervenes. And that's how we work. So, oh yes, fortunately, I know myself well enough to get a reminder into the system there. I want to thank everybody who is joining us. There are all kinds of fun things we love to share, and that you would take your time to do it is something we certainly appreciate. If you are watching the recording, because we do recognize that there are plenty of people who are like, I can't join you at that time. Go ahead and register, and we will send you the link once the recording is posted. So nice we are. And a shout out to the Krause Center for Innovation at Foothill College in lovely Los Altos Hills, California. Really wonderfully interesting place. And later this month, they will have the deadline for the merit program for 2021, being led by the very cool Kate Tolnay. So I hope you will give that a look if you are curious about really dynamic professional development related to technology. Won't be the first time you have heard about that opportunity by the time we end this little webinar. Richard, what are we looking at now?
You're looking at freetechforteachers.com, a blog I started almost 15 years ago now, and have just kept on writing and writing and writing. And you'll find all kinds of tutorials and tips and tricks for using technology in your classroom.
Lots of good insights, and the wonderful addition of, if you like this, then you might also check out in most of those posts, perhaps all of those posts as well, which I find really useful when I go there, and hopefully you will as well. My little piece of the internet world is nextvista.org, nextvista.org, an online library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screened content, my own little attempt to save the world from ignorance, one creative video at a time. And we're proud of it. So feel free to give it a look, find lots of good videos there. If you think, ooh, I think I'd like to get my own students making some videos that they can highlight, I'd love to talk to you about that. And on our front page, you'll see the two contests we've got going on right now. And you can make your way to the video library proper, where we have videos about academic topics and communities around the world, service to others, and much more. So if you are looking for something, just write and ask, and if we got it, we'll let you know. The aforementioned contests, the 90-second EduVideo contest, Creative Recovery, says in 90 seconds or less, creatively explain anything one might encounter in school. And we get some gems, and hopefully you will get your students involved in that as well. The deadlines are the end of the month, by the way, April 30th. So please give those a look. Service via video is our contest where we ask people to tell stories of those who make life better for others. During the pandemic, for both of these contests, we're not getting as many entries as we normally would, which means those of you who go to the trouble, your odds are better. So hopefully you will give that a look. Now, so you know, today is April 1st. And there are some kind of obvious pieces of that. Today is April Fool's Day. All right. Some people would put an apostrophe in there. I didn't. Hope that doesn't offend. This is also Fossil Fool's Day, which is something that was put together by some folks who wanted to draw attention to climate issues related to fossil fuels. And I learned that today is Edible Book Day. And so if you have ever baked a cake to look like a book, this is your day. This is that day. And hopefully that means a lot to you. So how does this work? What we do at Two EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff is that. So let's actually just jump right into the questions. Richard, why don't you get us going and read the first one we've got on our list for today.
First one came from Julie, who asked us, I was in a webinar at school last week, and the presenter mentioned that she uses Jamboard templates with her students. Do you know how to do that? Is it something that I can do with my regular Google account, or does it have to be my school account? You can use either account. You can use your Google account or your school account. Julie's question inspired me to create a video that's on my YouTube channel now about how to make a template for Jamboard. Basically, it's the same as making a Google document that you then share in Google Classroom with all your students. That's the easiest way to do it. easiest way to do it is just to make your Jamboard that you would like for yourself. Go to Google Classroom, hit make a copy for each student and distribute it that way. Or you can also share it just like you would a document and say, anyone with a link can view, and then people can make their own copies of it themselves. Either way will work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thinking about that question, I went back to the content that I put together for the April newsletter from Next Vista for Learning, which I hope all of you are already signed up for. And if you're not, you might as well, because all kinds of good things come through that newsletter, including there's stuff you might want to watch or read or try. And in the tries, there is this from the blog at TCEA. All right, Texas. All right. And what this is a bunch of SEL activity templates in Jamboard. And so you get in, you see all these different little things. If you need a hot chocolate template, they got it. So feel free to give that a look. Link is in the chat. Richard, next question.
You sent that link to, okay, you did all panelists and attendees. It looked like it was just two panelists there for a second.
All good.
All right. Question from Ramesh or Ramesh.
Probably Ramesh, but keep going.
Ramesh, sorry.
Right.
Thank you. I want to know which software you use to create your videos. Your style of moving the image from one corner to another and then center is fantastic. I use Screencast-O-Matic. It's desktop software. It's available to use in your web browser. There's a web browser version of Screencast-O-Matic that's free and lets you record for up to 5 minutes. But the version that I use is the desktop version, and it costs about $25 a year. If you're doing a lot of video editing, it is well worth the $25 a year to have it. And that $25 a year lets you use it on as many computers and devices as you would like. So that's a handy little thing there. That's probably, and someone asked us a few weeks ago, Rushton, what's the most common question you get? That's it. That is the one for me. That's the one I get more than any other is, how do you make your videos? So that's that.
Well, you have amassed so many videos and blog posts over time that that data is genuinely interesting. Let's do one more question before we jump into our first cool share.
One more question came from Bonnie. I have thousands of photos on Google Photos. I do too. I'd like to download them to an external drive. Someone recommended Apple Photos to me, but I've had trouble getting it to import to the photos and then group them by people. It says it will scan the remaining 400 plus photos from downloads weeks ago. What's the best way to, so the question is, what's the best way to download from Google Photos? What is the best program to download them to? So again, this inspired a video that I made. Haven't published it yet, but I made the video. Google Takeout. So go to takeout.google.com and select Google Photos in your account from takeout.google.com, and it will let you download a zip file of all your photographs. Now, I literally have tens of thousands in my account, so it will take a long time, and it does. And they actually say that. Google actually says, this may take hours or days when you go to download them all, but puts them all into zip files. If it's a lot of photographs like mine, it'll take, just be patient, download them all. Then I started using Amazon Photos, amazon.com/photos. And that also has a facial recognition. So it will recognize faces in it. It'll recognize objects in your photographs. The reason that I switched is the reason that a lot of people switched: storage space. Google discontinued unlimited free storage for Amazon Photos, for Google Photos. So I switched to Amazon Photos. And eventually Amazon will cut me off and I'll have to find some other service, but that's what I do.
Until then.
Until then.
Till then, I pasted in the chat a link to a Google support page on downloading your data, whether it's any files that are in Drive or photos or anything like that. And we'll add that to the links page as well, which we always make available. When you get that email after we process everything, it'll say click here and you'll find the recording of the webinar, the slides we used, and a page with the links that we mentioned. What a deal. All for the same price that it cost to register in the first place. Free. Save the world. All right, so with that, it is time for some cool share. Richard, you're up.
I've got two this week. The first one is a tool called magicgrade.me. And I wrote about this a few years back, and I wrote about it probably 7 years before that. And I'm going to share it again today. What this does, it takes any handwritten document your student has, lets you take a picture of it, and it automatically grades it for you. Pretty cool.
Is that right?
That's why it's called Magic Grade.
That's pretty magical.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I have,
Mm-hmm.
you go to the next slide. So I've got two things. This other thing is a new product from Google called Threadit. And it's still an experimental tool, but I wrote a long blog post about it last week, the week before. It's in between the last two times we talked, Rushton, I wrote a long blog post about it. It's Google's new Threadit tool, and I described it kind of like an alternative to Flipgrid. What it does is it lets you record a video. You can send it to a friend or colleague. You can share it just like a Google Doc, and they can reply with their own video in the same thread. It's a really cool tool. And you can actually do screencast tutorials with it that are segmented. Now, one of these two tools is real. The other one is fake. Which one is real?
Well, if you're asking me, which you might be asking me.
I am. Or I'm asking the audience, which one of these is real? Which one?
Checking the chat for people's opinions on this matter. Is it Magic Grade that's real, or is it Threadit that's real? Bonnie chimes in with Threadit is real.
Threadit's the real one.
So does Pat and Brooke. Yeah, Threadit is indeed the real. Matter of fact, do watch. Let's get the proper link in the chat on Threadit as well, because there's some other Threadit tools that are out there. So if we can get kind of that right thing, that would be dandy.
And I should say that the Magic Grade, when I first wrote about it like 7 years ago on April Fool's Day, people got really upset with me, even though it said April Fool's at the bottom of the blog post. I still use it anyway.
Well, good stuff as always. Thank you, sir. I believe we have more questions that we can take a look at as well.
We have lots more questions this week. Let's see. The question that you threw in here kind of, all right. Is there a tool? This one came from Debbie. Is there a tool that can be used to make interactive lessons for students that are large enough to see? Our district used to have Smart Notebook. That Canvas worked well and had many options. Google Docs has limited use as you can't add text boxes, shapes, or lines, and moving pictures around is difficult. I tried Google Slides, but they're too small for some of the things I'd like to do, since they can only be interactive outside of the presentation mode. I'd like to make click and drag lessons for things like virtual sorting, sequence activities. I've also used Google Drawings, but again, found it a little small for what I do, and the kids have to end up scrolling to see the whole thing. There's just words. The things I mentioned sometimes work, but if pictures are needed, they end up being too small. I hope this all makes sense. Debbie. Rushton, you had a suggestion, and I've got one that's not in our document, but you go first.
So I sent a note or two back and forth with Debbie on this. I suggested Jamboard as a tool for that. She said, she wants something larger. And I was like, all right. I would suggest Prezi. Its ability to zoom in and out means that you've got, a fairly infinite amount of space, right? And you can have up to 10 people collaborate on a Prezi as well, which is kind of nice. So those of you who I remember that tool. Yeah. Prezi's still around and still good. They've got a Prezi video tool that's kind of interesting as well. So you might give that a look. How about you?
So my suggestion would be to try something like Wiser, which I've mentioned before as a tool for working with PDFs, but You can also use it to create drag and drop activities. And it sounds like she was looking for some interactivity where students can sort things. So wiser.me is a possibility there.
Nicely done. By the way, Andy had a question in the chat about Google Expedition Kit. Do you have suggestions for how to continue to support a Google Expedition Kit of 30 devices?
That's a good question, because Google is ending support for expeditions on June 30th, 2021, this year. So the thing about expeditions is cool. I always thought that the defining feature of expeditions was that the teacher could pace students through. So you just didn't have 30 kids looking at a box and you wondering what are they looking at. The teacher could actually pace with their own device where students are going. And I haven't found anything that has that capability yet. I know I have gotten press releases from companies who are promising that they're working on that, but I haven't gotten anything firm yet as to what's going to happen in terms of that functionality to control or pace the students through an expedition. Because you can still use those, you can still use your Google Cardboard viewer. You can still drop your phone and you'll still be able to drop your phone into a Cardboard viewer and use Google Arts and Culture and look around at all that stuff. You'll still have that capability. You just won't have the capability anymore to guide students any longer. And the Expeditions app itself will be deprecated.
It's only a matter of time before somebody has something available like that, though. That is a PR bonanza waiting for somebody if they do it right. Another question that came up, is there a way to make pop-up text, for example, the definition of a word, in a Google Doc when you hover over a word, like on many websites online? Quick thought on that front, that while any pop-up represents a certain kind of security concern, perhaps, there is the ability to right-click on a word and then choose define. So you highlight the word and then right-click and then define is an option, certainly in Chrome. That's not as good as what you are asking for, but it's not bad. So there's a thought. Richard, how about you?
I would say the read and write for Chrome extension, if you try to do that in Google Docs, would work, although that is a paid service and I couldn't tell you what the pricing is on that anymore. I know it used to be fairly inexpensive, but it's gone up and up and up over the years. But read and write for Chrome would be something to try as well. They probably, I would guess that they have a free trial if you want to try it out before you take the plunge and buy it.
Makes sense. And that gets us to a cool share. It's been around a little bit, but I kind of learned about it for the first time fairly recently. Blob Opera. And this is a real thing. So I figured, but it's just got a feel that kind of seems a little April 1st-y for me, right? And so what happens is you've got these blobs. Say like there's this guy. You drag this one to sing bass, right? And then you got your tenor. And you're just moving the cursor. No, thank you. I'm guessing that is something that won't change your life, but on the other hand, for something that just kind of gets you thinking about something a little bit different for a few minutes. Blob Opera. I'm looking at the chat. Roaring silence in the chat on the Blob Opera. But another share. Woo! All right. So what this one is, this is actually a commercial from years ago. It's if you just play the video, and you've got the link here to do it, you can go to the YouTube page to find it. We won't play the video because YouTube and all right. But and by the way, if you don't know, they will not let us post our video if we have video from another video in it, which you can kind of understand. Anyway, what this is this is a video where like a foul ball is heading off, if you're not into baseball, sorry, and there's a person called the ball girl who like is on one side fielding, and whatever that means. But in this case, the ball girl like goes off a couple of walls in order to make this kind of stunning catch. And there's these kind of funny elements to it of the ball players, looking on like, holy, what, that's amazing, right? And so it's a commercial. It's not real, but it can still be an interesting prompt for a discussion. When we say real, what do we mean, right? When we say like, are we being taken for fools because it didn't actually happen? Or is there something about this commercial that's interesting in some way with regard to how we think about who's capable of what? So I tossed that out, the amazing wall climbing catch video from Gatorade that is just kind of a fun 46-second watch. Which brings us to our next question.
Our next question. I've got two questions open. Let's go with this one. I'm exploring options. This came from Anthony. I'm exploring options to have my students create simple apps. I began testing Thunkable today. I was wondering if you have any other suggestions. So depends on how in depth you want to go and where your students are. If your students are at very basics of app design, I would say start them off in something in the code.org studio. That'd be a fine place to start, get them some experience. Thunkable, another nice drag and drop place, block editor where students can get some experience. If you're looking for a little bit more than that, you might go to something like the MIT App Inventor. And I have a very lengthy tutorial on the MIT App Inventor. Again, it's block coding, but the nice thing about it is it actually does create an app that your students can use on their own devices, as opposed to if you do something in code.org, students can't really use it on their own phones. But they make an app with the MIT App Inventor. They can actually use it on their own phones if they want to, and they're done. So those are a couple of options there. Beyond that, you're starting to get into getting away from block editing and into hand coding, which is a completely different, I shouldn't say a different skill set, is a more advanced skill set. And there are lots of IDEs, integrated development environments, where students could start to do that. My students are using a tool called Phony, I should say, THONNY. We also use an environment called MyPHP. But again, at that level, we're talking about handwriting code and not using block editors.
In looking at ideas on this question, I kind of zeroed in on App Inventor. This is not something I've taught personally, so we're working with less knowledge. One surprise for me, I thought App Inventor was all about Android, and it turns out, no, there is App Inventor for iOS in the App Store. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I did not know. For all I know, it's been around for a long time, but I did not know. So nice to know that you've got both platforms, both most commonly used platforms available to you in App Inventor.
Yeah, I will say that the iOS version is slightly more limited than the Android version, and that is so they can comply with all of the iOS Apple walled garden regulations, as opposed to Android, which is technically open source.
And while we're on such things, by the way, and a big shout out to Parklands College in Cape Town, South Africa, that has an app development program at their school. And they have had something like 15 to 20 apps accepted into the Apple App Store. And as you implied moments ago, it's no small thing to get that. So kudos to them for the good work that they have done.
Yeah.
Do we have time for another question?
We do have time for another question as soon as I
Right.
bring up the question sheet again. Let me
Do
get
it.
the right question sheet up.
Do it.
Hold on. Oh gosh, I've got too many windows open. I was looking for one thing, and there we go. There it is. All right. So, question that wouldn't have the name for it. I'm working on my Google Calendar. Is it possible to add an event for several years? For example, March 21st is International Day of Forests. I didn't know that. Did you know that, Rushton? How can I add it? How can I add it to my Google Calendar in a way that that is already 2021 and also for the following years? So you have a screenshot for this.
I did. Matter of fact, you can see what I'm doing right now is just dragging a screenshot into a Chrome tab, which if you didn't know you could do that, you can do that. But in Google Calendar, when you go to the detailed one for setting it up, you click all day so that it takes the time piece away. And then what you can't see because I clicked on it is recurring event. And then you go down annually on March 21st, boom, International Day of Forest. You're going to have it in your calendar annually. Until when? Until Google is no longer a viable company. That could be a long, long time. But
for the sake of my retirement portfolio, I hope that's a long, long time away.
I suspect that Google has a fairly healthy future ahead of it. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
All right.
All right.
All right. With that, our next episode of this is Tax Day in the United States. April, actually, is it, or did they say that was like they give you extra time?
There's actually they extended it.
I think so. I think they did. Yeah. If there's an
They extended
accountant
the
actually watching this right now, just let us know. But our next episode is what is traditionally Tax Day, April 15th, and we are hoping you will jump in and join us that day as well. We always like to mention extended to May 15th through 17th, says Cecilia. Oh, thank you, Cecilia. Very nice. May 15th through 17th, depending on, well, we don't know. But Patriots for you as
Day
teachers.
Or not Patriots Day.
Something like that.
Yeah, that is true.
So we hope that as you are thinking about finishing up the semester, because maybe you are thinking about that. I mean, there perhaps only like a matter of 6 to 8 weeks to go, depending on your school, your district, your year. And I hope you're taking care of yourself because you're gonna need a lot of reserves for that home stretch. And do right. Eat right, get a little exercise. In order to be the best you can be for your students, got to take care of yourself. So every month, the people who receive my newsletter or find it or have it inflicted upon them or whatever it might be, will see that we give away a Starbucks card. Why? Why not? It is better to give one away and not need to than to need to and not give one away, he said. So feel free to take a look and see what you think. I could probably change that from the March to April now that the April one is out. At any rate, please give that a look. I will also get the April newsletter in the chat here in mere moments. If you follow your way back to the slides, when you get the email from me, you'll be able to do that as well. I share thoughts on occasion at rushtonh, rushtonh.com. The little blog I have called Inspiring Improvement. And I hope you will give that a look, as perhaps also the books I've written, which I put heart and soul into, and which the proceeds for help support my little nonprofit. Richard, for you.
You go to practicaledtech.com/weekly newsletter, sign up for my newsletter. It comes out every Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on where you live and depending on how much my toddlers slept that weekend. And you can find my Practical EdTech handbook that has about 60 pages of cool EdTech tools and tips and some ideas for lessons. So check that out. And you can also check out my YouTube channel. Oh, that's not the right slide. That's a different slide. Hit the refresh button. That's a different slide. Anyway, the slide, there it is. Next Tuesday, I'm doing a free webinar called Intro to Teaching History with Technology. And you can sign up with the link that I just put in the chat right there, or you can check out practicaledtech.com and info is there as well.
Cool image, by the way.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Oops. Let's see. Let's do that. Boom.
There's my YouTube channel. You can tweet at me. You can send me an email. You can Google me. If you Google me, I'm not the children's author. I'm the guy that writes about educational technology.
And if you Google me, you'll find me, because there's just not a lot of Rushton Hurleys in the world, as it turns out. But we're really excited that you decided to spend a little bit of your time with us. We hope that some of our ideas were things that caused you to smile or helped you get past a particular challenge you might have been facing, hopefully a vexing one, right? And that you are far better off for it now. We hope that you will take a look at some of the other episodes we've done. As you look on the archive page, you'll see the different tools we've shared along the way, and that you'll find things there that you think, ooh, I need to learn more about that. And indeed, we are happy to share them as the cool things that kind of come across our feeds as we go through our 2 weeks in between these fine shindigs. So with that, I hope you will all have a wonderful Easter weekend. If you are an Easter person, that is coming up. And a little time with family, maybe socially distanced, taking care of yourself, all of those kinds of things. But make sure that you have April 15th on your calendar to see us again. And with that, I will finish this recording off now. Thank you again for joining us.